Hi, this is Shane Starr, back in a suit for our 6th Enneagram video in a series of 9 about activating your inner Enneagram. Today we're doing, predictably, Enneagram 6, and we are going to be examining Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince in conjunction with 6. So to repeat our principles, it's the same as the last series with MBTI and Socionics, where we're looking at self-improvement. In that series, it looked like focusing on our third and fourth functions, as well as our eighth, our suggestive, mobilizing, and role functions if you're coming from a Socionics perspective. And in Enneagram, rather than focusing on our core type, we're focusing on what Ichazo and Naranjo pegged as our wings and our arrow of integration. So for 6, that looks like you're either a 5 with a 6 wing that you need to improve in order to be your best self, or you're a 7 with a 6 wing that you need to dip into to improve yourself, or you are an Enneagram 3 integrating towards 6 to be a more authentic, best version of yourself. So this is a great video for you if you are a 5, a 7, or a 3, because we're looking at 6. Okay, so what does a healthy 6 look like to get us started? I have our trusty little source right here by Don Richard Riso and Russ Hudson, who are, I would say, loosely disciples of Ichazo and Naranjo, who really popularized the Enneagram back in the 70s in Chile. So again, here we go with the 6. A healthy 6, able to engage others and identify with them, steadfast, earnest, affectionate, trust important, bonding with others, forming relationships and alliances, dedicated to individuals and movements in which they deeply believe, community builders, responsible, reliable, trustworthy, good foresight and strong organizational ability, natural troubleshooters, hardworking and persevering, sacrificing for others. They create stability and security in their world, bringing a cooperative spirit. At their best, they become self-affirming, trusting of self and others, independent yet symbiotically interdependent and cooperative as equals. Belief in self leads to true courage, positive thinking, leadership, and rich self-expression. So that gets us a good picture of what a healthy Enneagram 6 looks like, and gives you a clue as to the qualities we will try to activate in ourselves. So looking at our author for today, Niccolo Bernardo di Machiavelli. His dates are 1469 to 1527. He was from Florentine, Italy. He was a diplomat, author, philosopher, historian. He served mostly as an official with responsibilities in diplomatic and military affairs. He had a checkered life, full of successes and failures like many of us. He concerned himself with the ways in which a ruler could successfully navigate and survive in politics. I would say his reputation is largely unearned. People associate him with evil and deception and power-hungry tyrants, and really he was more about just navigating the political landscape, which is just as relevant today in 2025 as it was back when he wrote his famous work, The Prince, in the early 1500s. So I think Machiavelli is a little bit misunderstood, rather. But to look at The Prince and its themes, I wanted to bring my copy today, and I left it at home, unfortunately. But I have some notes, and we're just going to go with those. The themes explored in his book include politics, of course, and realism. He prioritized the success of the state over pure moral considerations. He argued that a ruler must sometimes act immorally in order to not only maintain the power and stability of his country, but for the greater good. Um, he really is associated, and this part is well deserved, with the ends justify the means philosophy. He advocates for a clear view of power dynamics, stripping away romantic idealizations of leadership. And in a way that's refreshing because there's so much fake news and fake politics going on today. Um, he saw virtue not necessarily as being good, but as in doing the proper thing, which sometimes looks not good on the surface. So Machiavelli valued the ruler's ability to act decisively, have courage and adaptability in the face of changing circumstances. He, one of the things I really love about his work, and I study this since high school, he looked at our lives as 50-50, 50% being our own selves, our inner personalities, our psychologies, who we are, and the other 50% being the cards we're dealt in life. And I think he compared it to playing cards. You know, you might be a better player than your opponent, but if he has a way better hand of cards when you're up against him, he can still beat you because of the luck that he has. But if you're way above him, even a better hand won't help the person. And if you are of great talent and skill but have just an awful set of hands, a hand that life deals you, you're going to be in trouble. And I think that's the case in life as it is in even typology. You know, everyone thinks that, you know, you're the same type from birth to death and you just get a little healthier or unhealthy as life goes on. I think that's about halfway true. And I mean, if you get someone who's naturally an INFP and they grow up as a soldier in the Middle East or something, I guarantee you no typologist, nor will they themselves type themselves as an INFP. They'll be something in the more, you know, STJ notion or something, you know, or STP, just because of life circumstances. That doesn't mean that your inner psychology doesn't have anything to do with it. I think indeed it does. It has mostly to do with it, but environmental factors, life events can have a significant impact on one's personality. And Machiavelli echoes this in a person's life and success. Human nature, Machiavelli didn't have the most positive view. He thought people were generally evil and fickle. And one of the things he said, which I have to remind myself again and again, is it's better to be feared than loved, because no matter how much someone loves you, Jesus Christ being a great example, Judas really loved him, but he deceived him, you know. No matter how much you love someone, you may deceive them if it's in your self-interest, or rather people will deceive you if they only love you and don't fear you. Whereas on the other hand, fear is a more reliable basis for positive results, because although people will betray their own friends, I mean, ask yourself, who has burned you the very worst in your life? Has it been an enemy or a family member or close friend? I'll leave that for you to figure out. I think it's clear. So when people fear you, though, they're a lot more careful with how they're going to behave, and you're less likely being deceived or taken advantage of if people are afraid to do so. I think that gives us a good inner look at the prince. Now, there's so much more here. We could do a whole video on the prince and nothing else, but it's about leveraging, doing the right thing with doing the pragmatic thing, balancing good and evil to succeed in your endeavors. It doesn't mean to be evil, it just means to have a holistic view of what are we trying to do and what's the most efficient way to get there. Very TE in a way. So how does this look for Enneagram 6? And I would say a healthy Enneagram 6 is going to have that balance. An unhealthy one's going to oscillate between obeying rules and authority versus rebelling against it. A healthy 6 will be decisive. An unhealthy 6 will overthink things. A healthy 6 will know when it's appropriate to take a risk. An unhealthy 6 will be very, they'll procrastinate. Unhealthy 6s, again, they overthink things. They're not decisive. So you could almost say the Prince is like a textbook for a 6 to go from average or unhealthy levels to healthy levels. And that's a pragmatic way of looking at it. But how can we translate that into action then? And I would say, using the Prince as a guide, look at your loyalty and commitment. Be more loyal and committed to those who merit that action on your part. Abandon it when it's not. I would say use that self-anxiety and anxiousness and tendency to overthink that you have, funnel that into being prepared and responsible and having the things under your control that are possible of being under your control, and bracketing the rest, not worrying about what's out of your control. I would say also use that anxiety that you might have as a 6 or a 6 wing, funnel that into strong problem solving skills. You feel the anxiety, that's okay, all of us do, but take proper steps to prepare. Machiavelli himself, he compared life to like a wild storm and flood, and what we can do in preparation for that, we can't stop the flood, we can't stop the storm, but we can build ditches and gullies and tents and places of safety to prepare for the storms, so that when life storms come, we're ready for them. That's what a healthy 6 does. An unhealthy 6 would just be scared and run. I'd say being team-oriented and collaborative. If you're a 3, you might struggle with that. I know the 3 within myself struggles with that. If you're a 5, you might struggle with that too. And if you're a 7, you might struggle with that. So I think focusing on the healthy 6 notion of being team-oriented and collaborative. And a lot of what's written in the Prince that's overlooked has to do with that. He talks about you have to be at peace with the people and at peace with the, political leaders. And, in his day, it might have been the Senate or noble people. At work, you have to be compliant with your supervisors, but at the same time, you have to be liked by the people you serve. In my case, that would be the property manager and the residents. I have to be very like a bridge, a diplomat in between the top leadership and the people we serve. And the Prince talks about that. You can't be hated by either side. You have to balance that. And I think true to healthy Enneagram 6 and what Machiavelli gives us in the Prince, that's a big part of it. Being overly trustworthy, and when you have to do something that is going to be frowned upon or revolted against, do all the bad things up front and all at once. Get them all over with. Don't trickle those down. Have your good deeds come again and again and again and do the bad things all at once so that you get them all over with. It's a lot easier to forgive evil when that's the case rather than a consistent, ongoing thing. Saying no to people is a more real life situation here. Next, I would say practice calmness and acceptance. This means emotional self-regulation. I think sixes, with their anxiety, they tend to overthink, and that leads to a sort of emotional deregulation, always on edge, always stressed, always uptight. And I think if you adequately prepare and understand what you're dealing with, like the Prince teaches us to do, I think that you'll grow into a more calm state of acceptance of your circumstances with the notion of making them better when you can. Okay, that's all I have for Enneagram 6 and Machiavelli today. If you have anything to add or question, put it in the comments. Tomorrow we're looking at Enneagram 7 and Nietzsche. So looking forward to that. See you soon.